Hello and welcome back. Apparently this was not filmed, so here we are. I added blue for my stream. I added white first, just like the sky. Then I added the water, and I made sure to go horizontal with my paint strokes. I also painted the sides of my grass with the same color. I had to remix it in my palette and then reapply it for the grass texture in the foreground. And I made brown by mixing all three of my primary colors together in a little spot. So I made some brown, added it to the side for some mud on the sides of my painting. So I apologize for not having that filmed, but that's kind of where I'm at. So now I'm going to continue with painting in my tree. So I'm going to start with my tree. I still have brown. You want to keep working quickly because the acrylic paints will dry out as you go. If you feel that it's drying out too much, take some water and just kind of drip it on there, and that will keep things from drying out. So if you feel like it needs a little bit more water, add some water to keep it from drying. Make sure you have your napkin with you. Let's go ahead and add some textures of grass. So I'm taking this mixed color. It is yellow and blue, lots of yellow, little tiny bit of blue, and a little tiny bit of red. So that keeps it neutralized. So now I'm going to go ahead and take my green and just kind of paint in some areas. What I really want to do is my tree, so I don't know why I'm doing my grass. I'm going to go ahead and rinse this out and move to my tree. So I want my brown. Again, the three primary colors mixed here is how I made my brown. And there's some water that I had just added to that, so I'm just letting that kind of mix in. Okay, so my tree is going to be right here. I remember I had drawn it here. I painted over it mostly, but that's okay. The great thing about acrylic paint is you can paint over things and it works really nicely, especially if the paint is already dried. So if you let this paint dry even more than I have it, it'll be even easier to paint over. I'm gonna just drag that up and out. You can see it looks transparent right now. That is because my paint is watered down a little bit more, so it's not as thick, so I have to do more layers. Because right now this is what's called a wash, and a wash is kind of transparent. It's a layer on top of it, but I don't want it to be transparent, so I'm going to do multiple layers of that to make it look solid. So there's the start of my tree. I'm gonna let that dry. While that's drying, I'm gonna address the leaves. So I don't want my leaves to be the same color as my grass. So that means I need to mix a new color of green. I'm gonna use the same area. I can use a different half of my palette if I want to, like the little well. This is called a well. This little dip into the palette is called a well. I can use a different area to create my other green. So I'm gonna use this half of my well. Wipe off my not palette knife, but makeshift palette knife. Gonna add a little bit of blue to make a green. I added more blue this time because I want this color to be more like the trees back here, which is a little bit more blue. I still really like having it kind of neutralized with my red, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab a little bit of red. Makes it look more natural, less synthetic. And I really like that. So there's a nice color. I still want more blue in that, so I'm just gonna grab a little bit more blue and add it in. All right, I like that color. I'm getting a really nice green. Okay, so I'm happy with that color green. Make sure this is recording. It is, okay, good. And then I'm going to paint it on there. I'm gonna paint it with my larger brush because I get a pretty good texture with that. So I'm just gonna pick up a bunch of my green and I'm just gonna blob it on there. You can see the texture that I'm getting. You can paint over the branches a little bit if you want. But this is kind of the Bob Ross style of texture painting. Just kind of press it on there, lift and press. just over and over. You can leave some of these leaves kind of floating. They don't have to be connected because the little tiny stems that would be connecting them are so small, you probably wouldn't see it. I'm gonna pick up some of this paint and use it over here. I don't wanna have to remix this if I can avoid it. But leave it uneven. Don't try to like make everything the same amount of paint. Let some of it be more paint, like thicker areas and then thinner areas. That's a good thing. Let it be a little bit more natural. I'm gonna go ahead and make that edge of it. You can go all the way around the edge if you want to, like I showed before. I'm not gonna worry about it right now. Make sure you get all the way to the branches. I'm gonna go back and add a little bit of outer texture. You can see I'm letting some of those leaves float, and that's good. Let it be kind of uneven. If you want to add some shadows, you could even take a tiny bit of black and mix it in there to your green and add some shadows. Try to focus on the lower part of the tree if you add the shadows. That way you don't make shadows above and it looks more realistic. Shadows are always under things. Perfect. So there it is. I'm gonna go ahead and add more brown because I still think it's too thin. I may need to remix my brown, which is okay. If I need to remix it, I can remix it. So let's go over how to do that actually, since you guys, this wasn't recording when I had made it. So taking yellow, adding it on there, wiping off my palette knife, really the back of my brush, in between, taking a little bit of red, adding it in there, wipe it off, taking a little bit of blue, adding it in there, keep mixing it, don't stop. If you see a certain color starting to show up, then you add the opposite of that. I see kind of a green. So the opposite of green is red. I'm gonna add just a little bit more red, and that should get me to brown. There we go, there's my brown. It's a little bit darker this time. If I wanted to make that color brown, I would add a little bit more yellow and a little bit more red, but I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm just gonna take this color, it's a little bit darker, great with me, and just add it on there. Try to let your branches be covered by some of those leaves. Don't be afraid to let them kind of be in there. You don't have to see every branch. So now my tree is no longer transparent, but pretty solid. You can still see some of the lake behind it. So I'm just gonna make sure that's nice and dense. I'm gonna make sure that my tree is rooted nicely down there. And just kind of add in a couple more layers. Pretty good. You can see I'm using my brush from the side. I'm pressing it down. And I'm thinking about the brush size that I'm using. This is a medium-sized brush. It's not the tiny one yet. That is for the next video. All right. Speaking of the next video, this is the end of this one. I will see you in the next one. Please continue on. We'll see you then.